So you're saying that you don't think the desert has the same amount of life as the rainforest?
No, of course not. Probably it's not an unhealthy environment, but it's definitely it has less life than a rainforest.
But is it possible that we just don't understand what's going on in the desert? I mean,
Maybe I don't.
We have this idea that
I'm not a scientist, but I don't know.
yeah, I don't know either. I don't know, but it seems like maybe we're being too selective in looking at an entire planet, and we're saying this place has life and this place doesn't have life. I remember watching a documentary about the rainforests, and it was describing the Amazon as being the lungs of the earth. All of the air that everything needs to survive in the rest of the planet, it comes out of this great rainforest and then goes across the deserts. And the deserts were important because the air could move freely across these desert areas to get to other areas where there would be more life.
Yeah, makes sense.
There seemed to be, but it's imposing a narrative, a sort of a lot of science is stories. I've always felt that science used in this way, where it describes a forest at a place as being like a lungs of a human animal or an animal. That's a metaphor, that's poetry. That's not science. That's poetry. And the story of the air moving and saying that it needs to get from here to here, and the desert makes sense because the air can pass to get to this other place. That's a narrative. That's the work of novelists and fiction writers. That's not the work of science. And so I think a lot of times we get into these it's very artistic and literary ways of looking at the earth, and we think we're doing science, but we're not doing science at all. We're doing literature. We're doing poetry,
Yeah, you do that. Not so much.
Well, you did do it. You did do it. I mean, you were saying like a desert is dead. I mean, the idea of a desert, the word desert. I mean, what is a desert? I mean, it's an imposition. We have a certain definition for the word, and we say that this area is desert and this area is not desert, and it's very arbitrary. In fact, the idea has been created by men, and that the word stands for this arbitrary location. That's poetic. That's the work of poetry, to say that words would mean these physical things, and it's the work of men to apply these words. It's not the work of the deserts and the earth and all of this. That's not where the idea of the desert comes from. The idea of the desert comes from humans.
Yeah.
And so it's the work of poets. It's the work of literary people. It's not science. It's not anything else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But going back to your question of feeling more connected to people from your own country, what makes you feel more connected to Americans?
I like the whole idea of America as a spacious country, that there's a lot of space. That's why I don't really like cities. I've lived in cities, but I like to travel in America. I like to get on the road. It's one of the reasons I like truck driving. I like all of the longer distances, all of the spaces in between places. That to me is very exciting. And America has a lot of that, particularly in the American West, not the East Coast, more the West Coast, and even the Midwest too. So I think the idea of space transforms the thinking of people. Europe is so congested. Europe is so close. You have all these different people living very, very close together, and they speak completely different languages, and they have totally different cultures. It's very exciting if you go to travel in Europe, that you could travel like in a car a couple hours, and you're in a whole other country. Mm-hmm. Go to America, you travel 2 hours, nothing's changed. You're in the same place essentially. So but geographically there's small changes, and I don't know. There's a lot of subtlety in America. I think people, particularly Europeans, make generalizations about Americans. They say Americans are like this. Well, I never liked when I hear that kind of talk because America is just so big. You can't really talk about America. I mean, there's just so much space separating people. You do have some differences. Yeah, there are a lot of stupid people who just eat McDonald's and watch the same television shows, but there are some subtle, tiny differences which I think are very exciting.
Okay, but and do you think when you came back from South America after 6 months or even longer, that that this connection to people in America is still there?
No, I think I've lost my connection to
I think so too. Actually, the more I traveled, the more I spent time abroad. I think the less I'm connected to the people here.
I think I'm all screwed up now. I did it to myself. I don't know how you feel, but I feel like I know too much. I've seen too much. I speak too many languages. I can't connect to anybody at all. The only people I connect well to are my family, because beyond all my experiences, I share like my blood. My blood is with their blood, and that's a much deeper connection than experience.
Yeah, blood does not mean anything to me, actually.
I'm sorry to hear that. I really.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't feel like with your family that like you'll catch yourself doing something and you say, "Oh, my father does that," or "This is what my mother does. I'm doing it too." And
I don't know. No, I don't think so.
You feel separate from them.
No, I would not say this, but the fact that we have the same blood does not. That's not the reason why I'm sitting right now here in my parents' house. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
But you don't feel a connection with them at any level. Is that what you're saying?
No, with my mom I feel connected. But
what is the nature of that connection? In what way are you connected?
Because she raised me, probably, but not necessarily because she I got the same blood as she. Yeah, it was more the process of raising me.
Because she cared for you,
yeah.
You feel connected to her. But does
and she does. She still cares for me. It takes care of me when I'm here. It's really interesting. I mean, I'm a grown up mid-30-year-old man, and she treats me like a little boy sometimes.
Yeah, but isn't that fact interesting?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't that inspire something deep inside you that another human would feel to want to do something like that for you?
Yeah,
Yeah. Only your mother would want to be like that.
Exactly.
Well, that's part of what I'm talking about with your blood, is that your mother and your father. Everyone has a mother and a father, and there's something deep, one of these ideas that I've had recently is that human beings, like, we like to think of ourselves as individuals and possessing all these characteristics and likes and dislikes, and we like to think that we're someone, and that you're also in control of what that someone is. I no longer feel that way. I feel like the human, the person, the I, is just this unknowable, and I wouldn't even say chaotic, because it's hard to know anything about it, but it's this collection of influences that are historical, cultural, biological, environmental, all these things. There's bacteria that are living in your gut that are influencing you. There's all this stuff going on, and that you and your identity, you're more just a place. You're a place where history and environment and a collection of molecules and memories. We have words for a lot of this, but it all kind of comes together in a very uncertain and essentially unknowable idea. That's the person. You're not anybody. You're just a mess of all kinds of shit. And a big, but for me, a big component of that is your family.
I don't agree, because the thing that makes you a person is your soul or your consciousness. I don't know. So it's not necessarily how many cells you have, how many bacteria are in your body, and all this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I think the soul.
It's not the physical stuff. It's something
no.
You cannot touch.
Oh, I'm not trying to reduce it to the physical stuff. I'm definitely not. I'm saying the soul is there too. I'm saying it's all there, man. The soul, the family history, the stories, your experiences, your interpretation of those experiences, the bacteria in your gut. I mean, it's all just a mess of shit that's going on. And consciousness, when you can sit there and think about yourself and your life, those moments, you seem to be very lucid and in control, but those moments are false. You're not in control of anything. And you don't even know what you are. You're a mess of shit. That even when you're dead and your consciousness goes off and your soul disappears, the elements of your body that are still living will go on to take other forms and come back to life in something else. And I think parts of you go with that as well. Perhaps parts of your consciousness and your soul. I don't know. But it's a lot more complicated than people tend to think they are. You know, that you've got a Facebook account and you say that I like these bands and I like this artwork and I go to these movies on the weekends and this is who I am and I'm pretty cool and you can like me. That's not who you are, motherfucker. You're a whole mess of shit that you don't even understand, you know? And I'm not saying that it's all bacteria and physical stuff. Absolutely not. There is definitely soul. There's all this stuff.
But maybe
there's
nowadays
probably a lot of
people
stuff
are
we don't
like
have words
this already.
for. What?
Maybe people are like this already. Maybe they are just some Facebook profile or some Instagram profile or whatsoever, and not much more nowadays. I feel sometimes they are just so boring.
Well, I agree. One of the ideas that I've also been thinking about is that what if people became the idea that the technology says you should become, right? Like I think like autistic people are like computer people. You know, they've lost the sense of emotion. They're losing the very human aspects of their life to become more like the technologies and more like what science says a human being is. And becoming more rational and computer-like.
And you think that was even influenced by technology? Or do you think these people would be different if there was no technology, or would they be autistic people as well?
I've been, for many years now, I've been believing that autism is a result of technology. It's a new evolution of man as a response to technology, the technological environment.
Okay, that's your theory, or that is some theory that other people have?
No, it's my theory.
Okay,
I'm not seeing it anywhere else. My mother, who works with autistic kids, she did. She disagrees with me.
Okay.
But she does listen to me about it. I've never worked with autistic kids. She worked with kids who would like take a paper clip and stick the paper clip inside their belly, like just cut themselves and, you know, attack you in the middle of class. I mean, very extreme forms of autism. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think that all of this though is a response to an environment which is like we were talking about earlier. The human environment has changed so much relative to the ability of humans to evolve. We're so far behind. Things are just dramatically changing, and we're not really perhaps prepared for it.
Yeah, obviously these people are prepared for it.
Well, I think they're happier. You know, I mean, you get all these wackos too are talking about the merging man with machines.
But
the future of man is to become a computer.
But one question: do you also think that that this highly competitive capitalistic system made people how should I say this, less human than before? I mean,
I would say that there's been some other technologies. We were talking about computers, but I think human beings are still catching up with the ability to do farming, to domesticate grains, and to live and to be farmers. We're still to this day catching up with that discovery of eating grain and not living off meat and hunting and fishing and gathering a few root vegetables from the forests, which is how we lived for millennia. I think there's all sorts of technologies which it takes maybe much longer time for humans to develop. And some humans develop with these new technologies better than other humans. And domestication of grains, capitalism, business, computers, these are all human inventions, technological inventions that transformed life. And I think some human groups, and I'm not talking genetically or racially, I think those are very stupid ways of looking at human life. I'm talking about more people who come from certain environments will be better adapted to these technologies than other environments. And like, for instance, like eating grains and eating lots of carbohydrates, corns and rice and pasta. About 6 months ago, I stopped eating all of that, and I've had dramatic changes in my health for the better.
Seriously?
Oh my God, I would recommend you do this. This has been a revolution in my life. This has been the best thing that I've ever done, is to stop eating all of that shit. I don't eat pizza. I don't eat any bread. I don't eat anything.
Okay.
I feel incredible. I dropped probably like 15 pounds. I'm much thinner. I have, and my body is transformed from getting energy from carbohydrate sources to getting energy from fat sources. So I'm not hungry very often. I used to have terrible pangs of hunger, like I'd be overwhelmed by hunger. I'd have these big glucose spikes and falls. And one of the other things I had was like a dentist told me I had gingivitis because I had like bleeding in my gums. And they said that was irreversible and my teeth would fall out unless I go to the dentist all the time. That all went away. I have no plaque buildup on my teeth. My gums are incredible now. Apparently, there's also heart disease associated with that. I could have heart attacks. I assume that my heart now is better than ever. This all came from stopping eating all of the grains and the carbohydrates from grains. Mm-hmm. And my moods are better. My energy levels are better. I had a lot of problems because I broke both my elbows in accidents, and I would have like a lot of inflammation in my joints. My joints feel better than ever. I can run. My elbows feel great. I have no pain. Because these carbohydrates are very inflammatory for all of the tendons and soft tissues. And so all of these areas of the body were inflamed by eating that diet. It just wasn't good for me. Perhaps there are people that could eat carbohydrates and intense grains, but the eating of grains began about 10,000 years ago. The first farmers who intensively lived off grain, 12,000 years ago. I'm of the opinion that we still have not, at least I haven't, my blood lineage. I look at physically how I felt eating all that bread and pasta. I didn't realize how bad I felt. And obviously, it's obvious to me that my body was not evolved enough to handle the grains. And that's 10,000 years of history that my family has probably been eating grains. People in my blood have been eating grains. They have not evolved to this new technology. So we look at 10,000 years of grain eating and we say, look at the computer, which is very, very new, and carrying a cell phone in your pocket. If it's 10,000 years that I can't be physically healthy to eat grains, how long is it going to take to acclimate a human being and feel good about using a computer and that transformation of life? You know, I think a lot of the psychological problems and everything are related to the computer use.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I think it's just a question of, you know, I was saying earlier about how you need the human animal needs time to adjust itself to the new environment. I don't believe I have adjusted to 10,000 years of eating carbohydrates. It's been 10,000 fucking years, and I felt terrible. You'd think that I would have adjusted that, you know, in my blood and my family after 10,000 years. No.
But do you think that the young generation are already adjusted enough to deal with technology? You know, people that have never seen anything else. You know, there is already people that have not experienced times without internet. I mean, for them, I think it's a very different experience than for people like us that know the 80s where there was no internet.
Well, they have some studies about that. I just read a study about the young millennials who have grown up with the internet, and apparently they suffer from extremely high levels of anxiety and suicide that have not before been seen with young people. You know, stories about them sleeping in bed with their cell phone next to them, that they don't go out on the weekends. They spend all their time on the internet. So I don't know if I think generally they're not very well developed if you look at their psychological health. But at the same time, though, I feel like there's also, it's very hard to isolate the factors that are perhaps causing them trouble. Because I think the food has gotten really, really bad in the United States. I just think that there's so many things that have deteriorated and changed, and a lot of it, it's just hard to say it's just one thing. I don't know if you can be scientific about it, but I think that the reality is that you can't expect a human being, even if they've grown up with something totally new for human beings, to be acclimated to it immediately. They bring with them into life a whole many lifetimes and generations of expectation that life would be like this, and you're not a blank slate when you're born. You have a lot of baggage from millennia, from all the way back to Adam and Eve, or whenever you want to say we started, from the apes. So everybody has that, and I don't know. I don't think these millennials are ready for it either. They're having to deal with it, but they're not ready for it.
I don't know.
How could you be ready for it? I think human beings are conservative. I think this whole capitalistic technological thing is it's an era, it's an epoch, and it might just disappear, and we might go back to something really, really simple. I could easily see that happening. Less population and people just wanting to just live very, very simply. And they realize they're healthier. If you realize you're healthier living a certain way, you might want to do it. It could happen if there's environmental changes or some big catastrophe, or a huge country or states fall apart, epidemics wipe out a lot of the population, breakdown of trade, any of these, a nuclear war. Any of these things could trigger something which could result in a more human life and a healthier life.
Yeah, possible. But maybe it's even possible for some people without all of these catastrophes.
Well, I think some people are trying to live like this now, aren't they? I mean, they're trying to live better.
Yeah, I mean, the internet is a very important thing for people nowadays, including me. I wish it was not that important, actually. And I definitely can feel that the more I use it, the worse I feel. It's just wasting of time. You could interact with people instead. You could do some physical activities. You could work. So many things. You could be productive, but using the internet is normally not a very productive activity for me.
Well, I found that one of the great things about the internet is if you want to learn things and get information quickly about doing particular projects, it's excellent. Like today, I downloaded a program for doing page layouts for books to work on the press. Mm-hmm. And I was able to watch YouTube videos about how to do that and ancient bookbinding techniques. So it was all very exciting.
Yeah, of course.
This is all stuff that can help me. Yeah. Because that information before, I would have to go to a library and I'd have to search for books and I have to look at old microfiche or something. I mean, it could be very tedious. I mean, you probably remember the old days of the card catalog at the library. You had to look at those little cards with the numbers typed on them. Look for the books. Remember that?
Nah, I think we had a different system here. I don't know.
You didn't have those. There would be like these drawers, these long drawers, little thin drawers, and they were filled with all these little white cards that had book titles and numbers on them. And you'd have to look through all of those to find the book you were looking for.
I think you had to ask somebody. I don't remember much. I was not. Well, I was not much of a reader back then.
Oh, well, I mean, it changed. Yeah, it probably changed. The first computers really changed all of that. But when I was growing up, there was still the card catalog, and then there was the computer, and now you don't even have to go to the library. If you go to the library now, at least here in Dallas or any of the cities that I've lived in, it's filled with homeless people. That's who was in the libraries.
Okay.
I don't know about Europe. Because no people with homes use the library. No people with the internet use the library. But in any case, like I'm able to do this good research, but at the same time, the internet is a portal, is a doorway to just madness, never-ending madness. It'll never end. Just the nonsense that's on there from. I stopped reading the news. I used to read the New York Times. I used to read all this. I don't read any of it anymore. I stopped reading the sports news. This was also at the same time that I stopped eating carbohydrates. So I had this dramatic change in my life that no longer did I use the internet for all this waste of time.
So how do you know the reason why you feel better now is because you're not consuming internet? Or
that's part of bread. Well, I know because of my physical health.
No, maybe it's tied to each other.
It might be, but I'm inclined to believe it's not. I mean, I know from other people's talk about stopping eating bread, carbohydrates, and grains, that one of the effects that I described are the same effects that have happened to them. The dental health is a big one, really tied to not eating grains. The energy levels, stabilization of energy levels, and hunger, also a big one. Mm-hmm. So I know that. I mean, I think the internet maybe have something, maybe perhaps a minor influence on all that. It's always hard to know what the causes of anything is, but in any case, I feel like I'm more in. I don't have these more radical swings in my life. It's more stable. Okay. It's much more stable, which is a good thing. And it allows me to work on other stuff. Yeah. But I think you should try this experiment with diet. I know you were eating like you and I, that pizza we had together here in Dallas. Yeah, that was one of the last pizzas that I ever ate.
Oh, okay. I had a couple of pizzas in between.
Well, yeah, but I'm curious though, if you were to stop eating any grain, no more pizza, no more bread, just eat meat and greens, and see how your mood is affected. I think you might be really interested in that as an experiment, because you'll see a dramatic difference. I think within a couple of weeks, you'll see a huge change. You'll see a huge change.
Okay, so but it takes a couple of weeks to notice some difference.
I mean, maybe a week. I mean, it's very fast.
Okay.
Your body apparently, your body goes back to something called the ketogenic diet, which is a fat burning diet.
I heard of it.
Yeah, I don't know if I've entered into this state. It's a state called ketosis, where your body is only burning fat and no longer is looking to burn carbohydrates for energy.
Yeah. I was told that you get a lot of energy, your sex drive is much, much stronger, and all this kind of stuff when you only eat fat. It's basically, the diet is just fat, right? Or fat meat.
Yeah, well, it's you're getting your energy from fat, which comes from animal fat, but you're also eating greens.
Okay.
You're not, it's not just meat. You're not on a carnivore or simply diet. But the idea though is that your body goes into a fat burning mode. So, and fat burns much slower than carbohydrates. Your body blows through carbohydrates very quickly for energy, but fat, it's a very slow burning process. And yeah, I feel really good. It's unfortunate I've lost like 15 pounds. I was already skinny, but now I'm like, the interesting thing is though, I can work out harder. I'm doing harder, better workouts than I was before. So I'm getting more muscular, but I have no fat on my body anymore because my body's been burning that fat. And just because of the nature of the truck driving and my strange hours, a lot of times I go without eating. So I'm also doing fasting. And this fasting tends to really accentuate the diet. So you have these periods where you're not eating. Some people only eat like during a 1 hour a day. That's the only time they eat. And the rest of the day they don't eat anything. And you're able to do that.
Which is very healthy, because then the body uses the body fat you already have.
Right. And it goes in and it looks for energy in the cells, and it burns up the bad stuff that's in your cells.
And you get very smelly,
basically. Yeah, these big stinky shits.
No, also
I don't know.
Also,
what are you talking about?
Also, your, how do you call it in English? Your odor is getting very bad for a few weeks, because the body uses the old fat from your body, and this is a very So your
wait, you're saying that you smell bad?
Yes.
I don't smell bad. I smell good. What you talking about, man? Smell bad? Nah, you smell good. You don't smell bad if you do that diet. Yeah. I think you smell much better.
Okay. But maybe in the first few weeks, maybe you didn't notice it. I mean, I don't know if your diet was similar, but anyway, if you do like this special diet, I don't know what it's called, where you eat like within 8 hours, and then 16 hours you are not allowed to eat anything. And when your body uses your old fat from your body, because there's nothing else from the food you ate during the 8 hours where the body could get energy from, and this old fat is supposedly very smelly.
Really? I don't know anything about that. I have not. I should maybe ask people that are around me. Do I smell? I haven't. I don't know.
No, but it's probably long over, because now you don't have body fat anymore.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe during the first few weeks.
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, it's been a couple months now that I've been doing this.
Yeah.
But Andreas, I'm absolutely convinced, and it's also, I think your mood will improve. I just think that the pizzas and all that stuff that we're told to eat all the time, it's just, we have not developed our bodies to be able to process this stuff. even after 10,000 years. And then on top of it, you add in all of these processed sugars, corn syrups. This stuff is, your body does not know what to do with it, and it results in these inflammation of joints, and I believe a deterioration of mental health. You just don't feel good. You feel bad about yourself and about the world and everything.
What about Mountain Dew?
Oh my God, that's just poison. That's the West Virginia Appalachian poison. Like, you see people drinking Mountain Dew. I mean, oh my God, Mountain Dew. That's one of the worst things you could ever do to yourself. Do they sell Mountain Dew in Austria?
No, of course not. I did not even try it when I was in Texas. I was curious. What it was actually.
Well, I should have had you try some. I mean, a little bit won't kill you. It wouldn't kill you, but I mean, it's jacked with sugar and caffeine, and your teeth just rot right out of your mouth. I mean, it's just terrible. It's terrible. But they give, there's mothers giving their babies Mountain Dew. It's just nasty. And it destroys your bones. That's one of the things. Like, there's all these 5-year-olds who weigh 300 pounds who are diabetics and have terrible bones and teeth. I mean, it's just terrible diet. But so Andreas, you got to try this. Just cut out all the pizza. No more bread, no more cereal, no more grain-based foods of any kind.
Okay.
Just cut it out. Cut it out for 2 weeks.
Breakfast will be hard.
Just eat an egg.
I don't like
stop
eggs
eating breakfast.
Every day. No,
stop eating eggs.
I need breakfast.
You don't have to eat breakfast. Just have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You only, when you go on this diet and you get serious about it, you're not going to feel hungry. You won't have hunger like you did before. A lot of your hunger is because you're going on these great. You're like, when you eat all this carbohydrates, it's like going up a mountain of energy. You get this huge burst of energy, and then you collapse. You collapse to the bottom. You fall, and you feel super hungry again, and your body needs more of that drug, that carbohydrate drug. And you're not going to feel that anymore. You're going to get a stabilization of your system. And you're going to feel, your body's going to realize that it's got to work with its energy reserves and its fat reserves to live. And you're going to feel much better. You're not going to feel hungry. You're not going to feel like, I got to eat breakfast or I'm going to feel terrible. No, you won't feel that anymore. You'll be able to function just fine without eating.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you'll spend less money on food, and you'll feel better. Yeah. I did have pizza again though. After I went onto this diet, I thought one night I would get pizza. Ines wanted pizza, and I said, "All right, well, because she got onto this diet too, but she's been slower to do it because she's Colombian. She likes to eat rice." And I said, "You can't eat rice. You can't have rice. You can't do it anymore."
What about arepas?
And no. Well, it depends what the arepas are made from. Ines makes arepas with yucca, which is a vegetable.
Okay.
So you could make them from a vegetable. You just can't make them from grains.
Okay.
But anyway, I got us a pizza, and I felt terrible after eating this pizza. That my body was not digesting it. I felt like I had this huge ball of dough in my stomach, and I felt terrible. I felt terrible for about 2 or 3 days from eating a pizza.
Okay.
It tasted great when I ate it. It tasted so good when I ate it. I was so happy to eat it, but the pain for the next 2 days was awful, really, really awful. And I said, I'm not eating pizza anymore. It's just it's too painful. So now I'm finished, and I look at I look at all these people that are around me and that I work around, and I look at their faces. And I look at their bodies, and I realize that their faces and bodies are just inflamed from the food and the things they drink and eat. I can see it now. I see very clearly. Like I think if I ran into somebody who had a good diet, I would recognize them as having similar physical features. And I feel like all these inflamed people that are just they're tormenting themselves with their food. they look at me and they think, oh, who is that skinny guy? He's just a weird looking guy. Like I stand out as like this weirdo. Like this fucking guy is a skinny weirdo guy full of energy. And he's not fat and puffy and lethargic like we are. I mean, he's not really human, because the majority of human beings are just, they're so badly, they have such a bad diet. They're just not feeding themselves very well. And so they look at someone who's truly healthy, who's living at a higher level, and they think that's the weirdo. That's the strange fellow, So I feel like a weirdo. But
which you are obviously in the environment you work at.
Yeah, but I would be a weirdo in any environment I'd be at now. I told you, man, I fucked my life up. I'm too strange now. I know too much. I've seen too many things.
I know.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of things too. And well, I mean, for instance, do you think that you're a different person? You were a different person after that experience in Burma, floating in the water? Did that change you?
Not as much as seeing so much, or traveling so much, or being abroad so much. I think that changed me much more as a person. I thought I'm dead already, but I don't know if that changed so much. How I live my life. So probably I'm still doing many things the same way as before. I think I did not change very much. It's a good story though.
No, it's a good story, but I still feel. But didn't you? You felt responsible for another human being. Didn't what you did save the other guy's life, right? You saved the guy's life, didn't you? Would that guy have died if you weren't there?
Probably not. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, the conditions were unpredictable. There was a strong wind, which means there was a very big wave on the surface. The same direction the first 5 hours was a tidal current. The tidal current changed after 5 hours, so it went the opposite direction. And the tidal current was actually much, much stronger than the wind wave, which was very surprising to me. So probably even a person just floating on the ocean would have gone back to the same direction somehow where they came from. I don't know. It would have taken longer, but maybe. And I mean, the Burmese Navy was looking with 23 boats for us, mostly in the wrong direction. I don't know why they did it this way. I don't know. I was never thinking about this question. I'm just happy that everybody survived.
Well, you in that situation, were you more concerned with your own self in your own life, or with the life of the other person?
To be honest, I was not so much scared of dying. I was more scared of being in pain, because I was already so thirsty, and I didn't want to spend, let's say, 60, 70 hours more just being on the surface, surrounded by salt water, and not be able to drink some water. So I already felt very thirsty because I was swallowing a lot of salt water because of the wind wave, and I was looking sometimes over my shoulder back. And then a wave hit me. I was not so much scared of dying or that somebody else dies. I was just afraid of the pain that salt water causes.
Well, perhaps there was no time really to be thinking about things,
No.
in a big way.
I mean, I already thought I'm dead, or that I will die. That's for sure. I did not expect a military dictatorship looking for Westerners to look for them with 23 boats.
But what did you tell the these other people? That it was one person that was with you, or more than one?
No, it was 3.
Well, what did you tell them? Weren't they getting anxious?
Yeah, of course, very much.
And what did you tell them? Did you lie to them?
No, I mean, I
You said, "Well, we're gonna die. You might as well drink some salt water. We're dead."
No, I mean we made some stupid jokes, but we never stopped fighting. We never stopped fighting the current.
But you could see that was not working. I mean, it was you fighting was irrelevant.
Yeah, but I was still thinking. I mean, at one point we even crossed. We came across a fishing boat. The fishermen saw us, but they were just so afraid because the relationship between fishermen and the Burmese Navy at this time was not very good. So they just left us in the water. So I.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my.
I don't know. No,
man.
I was never. I mean, I did not have hopes that I will survive, but I was never desperate that I will die either. So I think I did not give them the impression that I just give up now. I just kept on fighting all the time and.
Were they looking to you for leadership? I mean, were you
No,
leading?
I don't think so. Because in the middle of the ocean, I think it doesn't really matter how fit you are. I mean, we were already 10 kilometers out there, so you could see the islands in the east, like just the silhouette, and then it was getting dark. No, it doesn't.
So it was nighttime?
Yeah,
It was nighttime?
It started at noon and it ended at 8 o'clock. And near the equator, as you know, it's getting dark very early. So I think we had a little bit more than 2 hours in darkness.
Wow.
It doesn't really matter how fit you are or how experienced. If you're in a situation like this, then if you survive, it's mostly because of luck.
But don't you? I'm just still surprised though that you think that experience was the experience that you could die. I tend to think that it's a pretty important experience. You're trying to say that that's not a very important experience.
No,
I
did not say it's not an important experience. I think it did not change me very much. I mean, it definitely changed my diving destinations and how I look at tide tables. But like for the rest of my life, I think it did not change very much. I did not become less risky. I did not become more wise. I don't know. I think the effect is not as big as people think.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree. There's been a few instances where I've felt close to death. Whether it was people around me who were ready to die, and like I saved my grandmother one time. She was going to die, and I remember it. I was young, and I ran and I got help and I saved her, and that was kind of the first time. And then I had this neighbor who was like my brother. he died. He got killed when he was 5 years old. We were both 5. He got killed. And that was my first understanding that people could die. And someone that you were really close to could die. But then again, what?
What about your own experience? Last time you were talking about hypothermia with the general.
Oh yeah.
And
that was bad.
The accident in Spain where you hit where you broke your 2 elbows. I think that is where it came from, right?
No. In Spain, I didn't break anything, but I was probably concussed, and I probably broke a rib or something. I was covered in blood. It was pretty. I was lucky I didn't go off the mountain. It was just stupid.
But
it was stupid what I
did.
Did
these experiences change you as a person?
You know, the interesting thing is that things that I do on my own where I could kill myself, I don't learn from them. Like I think probably if I was in your situation in the water floating away and I knew I could die, I don't think that would change me very much, because you could think, oh, maybe I should have done that, but at the same time, yeah, you probably could have done something different, but your death is your own death in this situation. I was more affected by September 11th, in New York City. Like that messed me up for years. Like I still am a little traumatized by that whole experience. But I think part of the trauma of that experience was that it affected so many people. It didn't just affect me. And so I looked at all of the things that changed around me. Like my whole world was changed, and the whole world today is changed as a result of that one event. So it's hard for me to separate my own personal feelings from the dramatic change in the politics of this country, New York City at the time, everything that happened as a result of that event that I was very close to. So, but did I learn something? I don't think I learned anything. I just knew that I didn't want to die like that. I didn't want to die in a city. That was the one thing I was thinking. I just don't want to fucking die in New York City.
But after that, you went to Miami, right?
Well, yeah. It took me a few years to get to Miami, but I was ready to leave New York City right after September 11th. I wanted to leave. I did not want to be there anymore. I thought, this is the shittiest place on earth. These motherfuckers would just crash planes into buildings and kill everybody. I do not want to die like this. There's 3,000 people dead here. I do not want to live. I don't want to live here. It's a smoking burial ground. I don't want to live here. This is shitty. This is not life. I don't know why anyone would want to come here. I'm leaving. But I couldn't leave, I didn't have any money. I was trading. I was just getting started. And, and then my wife came from France. And, and then, of course, she wanted to stay because she wasn't there for September 11th. Incidentally, she went to the U.S. Embassy on September 11th to get her visa to come to the United States. And she went there in the morning. And she got there right as the first planes had hit the World Trade Center. And these guards told her, you can't enter the embassy. There's been a terrorist attack in America. And she thought, oh, these stupid Americans, they're always overreacting, da-da-da. And so she waited, and they made all these people line up who were there for their visas. But she didn't know about the news that was going on. And then she heard the news that these planes had hit New York City and da-da-da. And actually, the guy, a friend of mine from Paris, who had introduced her to me, worked in the World Trade Center. Very good friend at that time, and in Paris as well. And he had moved to New York, and he was working there. And so immediately she thought, "Oh my God, he's in the World Trade Center, and Peter is nearby. What? Holy shit! This is actually very, very serious." But the phone lines were all down. You couldn't call New York City. I mean, you couldn't get in touch with anybody. So anyway, this is that was what was going on at that time. But it's very strange though that she was she was trying to get into the U.S. Embassy on that day to get her visa to come to the United States, and then she came to the United States, but she hadn't lived through September 11th. And September 11th really changed a lot of people who had lived through it. There was like a whole generation of New York City people who, it was like something you talked about, like at a party, or, you know, you'd be like when you knew someone had been in New York for a while, you started having a few drinks, and you'd be like, hey man, where were you on September 11th? It became like something you shared. And then there were a lot of new people to New York who weren't there for September 11th, and they wanted to have been there for September 11th. It was a very strange dynamic. I remember reading an article in New York Magazine about like 50% of New York people who came after September 11th who want to have had the experience of living through September 11th. And if you were a real New Yorker, you were there at 9/11. If you were a fake New Yorker, you were there. You came after. It's kind of ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. But did that event change me? I mean, it changed everything. It changed the whole fucking world. That event. I mean, to be honest with you, it changed everything. The world was a different place afterwards, and it's still different as a result of it. And it's not my life in particular that's different, but it's everything around me, my whole environment. I mean, you too, everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. People. I think you're right though that people make too much. They make too much of a point about these near-death experiences. They're not that important, you know. Your life doesn't change in a big way. You know, you go on living, right?
No, but I mean, I think they are very important. Even some turbulences on aircrafts when you're flying are very important, because it makes you feel that you are still alive and that you don't want to die. You know, sometimes you just feel miserable and depressed, and you don't care very much. But even in a state like this, and then you're flying somewhere, and then you have turbulences, and then, I mean, I'm afraid of flying, and then you feel this, and then you're, I don't know what kind of hormones it is, maybe some adrenaline, but it tells you you're still alive and you don't want to die. So these experiences are important. But I don't know.
But is it
after that? I don't think that they are so important that they will change you that much.
But it sounds to me like you just don't want to die in an airplane. You have no problem dying at sea, but if you were to die in an airplane, that would really bother you. That's what it sounds like.
Trust me, I don't want to die at sea as well. So it's a horrible imagination. I still risk it, but it's just nothing I would prefer over a different death.
Well, the way I look at it though is that I'd rather die doing something that I want to be doing. Like I chose to do it, rather than I got hit by a plane, flown by some terrorists, or the plane that I was in crashed because the pilot was drunk. You know, I don't want to die as a result of somebody else. I want to die because I chose my death. I chose the circumstances. I chose the moment. And maybe I don't want to die, but I still am responsible for putting myself in that position. You know, just buying a plane ticket or getting on a boat is not a reason to die. It's not really choosing the circumstances of your death.